What is the single worst movie you sat through hoping it would get better, but didn't? Mean Girls 2. Thought it was going to be like the first one. Ended up with a Walmart version. There's a Mean Girls 2, unfortunately. The new Dolittle movie with Robert Downey Jr. The climax of the movie is him pulling a bagpipe out of a dragon's ass. I was just sat there like, who approved this to be made? Pulling a bagpipe out of a dragon's ass. I have never wanted to watch this movie more than right now. But I feel like I'd be left with more questions than answers. Right? That sentence just made me determined to go watch this travesty just to watch that scene. Allegiant. Nothing actually happens in the film. I cold watched paint dry for 2 hours and it would have been a more productive use of my time than watching that film. Super disappointing, especially since the first 2 films were fairly decent. They actually didn't finish the series because the rating for it was so bad. There was talks of doing it as a TV mini-series, I do believe, but that was kicked to the curb as well. Edit. Wow guys. Thanks. My most upvoted comment was about a great book series made into shitty movies. Didn't Shailene Woodley say if it went to cable she was out? I thought that was what put a bullet in it. Took the family to see it because the kids read the books. You're right. It was just plain bad. The Dark Tower. The only reason I didn't leave was cause I was in southern Florida for a trip and went to the movies to get out of the heat for a while. The movie act was the only good thing I found with that movie. The makers of that movie have forgotten the faces of their fathers. It was horrible. It was nothing like the books and just sucked. You could have made each book its own movie, but no. Let's cram like 14 huge novels into a 2-hour movie. You'll ever seen Slenderman? Absolute shit show. As soon as the credits were rolling in the theater, a guy in the back yelled, "Well, that was shit." I agree. There's nothing interesting in that movie. You should rather go watch Marble Hornets on YouTube if you are interested in good Slenderman content. Marble Hornets was terrifying. Until episode like 185 or something, when it was 3 months between releases and I couldn't keep track of what the hell was going on. There's so many movies on this list where I'm thinking, how did you not know that was going to be awful? As a former Blockbuster employee, you have no idea how bad the average person's shitty movie radar is. I know people who automatically gravitate toward the shittiest movie in the theaters. I don't know how they do it. I Know Who Killed Me starring Lindsay Lohan. OMG, I was a stupid teenager and thought she was so cool, so I actually spent some of my parents' hard-earned money to get it on pay-per-view, and it was sewer trash. Transformers: The Last Night. For a movie that's called Transformers, they sure do put a huge emphasis on everything except them. Optimus is in the movie for like 8 minutes, and it's painfully long. I almost walked out watching this movie. I was on a plane. Thanks for the good laugh. After Earth with Will and Jaden Smith. It was the double combo of being bad, but getting the sense that they thought it would be groundbreaking. I seem to have a foggy remembering of a Percy Jackson movie coming out at some point, but I don't really remember much. Don't try to remember. It was bad. Having read the books first, it was bad. BF said he liked it, having not read the books. As an aside, he explained what he could remember of the second movie, and I learned that the movie equals books 2 to 5. It was not terrible before you read the books, but bad enough that you didn't care to go see the sequel. I read the books after and said, oh wow, those movies were way off, and I read all of the books, so they were significantly better. Fantastic Four, 2015. That movie is a dumpster fire of epic proportions, but I wanted to see what they did with Doom, so I stayed till the end. But they ducked him up to edit to instead of to. I struggled to finish that movie. Previous Fantastic Fours were better. The first 2 were bad in a fun way. 2015 was just kinda depressing. Artemis Fowl. What an absolute clusterfuck that movie was. Disney just skullduggered the source material to death, and then set fire on the body. Skyline. Kept waiting for it to have redeeming quality. Somehow just kept getting worse. This is the movie I first thought of. Nothing happened. Absolutely nothing. I could not have given a shit about the characters if I tried. It was so damn boring. But then, the last 5 minutes. What the hell? I spent like 30 minutes ranting about this movie to my family after watching it. LMAO. It had no right to be that shitty and boring, and then throw that WTF ending out there. It was like they ran out of money and just decided to use storyboards to finish the story during the credits. The worst movie I have ever seen. Independence Day, Resurgence. What a clever premise. We adapt their tech to advance our civilization and can stand a chance when/if they return. The movie was shit. I want to see the story of the African tribes fighting a brutal, decade-long war against the alien survivors of that huge ship and ending up with a mountain of alien skulls. That's far more interesting than whatever the movie was actually about. A Wrinkle in Time. Only reason I sat through it was that my brother watched it and said it was decent. Something weird and unusual happens for some reason. Then something unrelated, weird and unusual happens for some reason. Repeat 5 times. The end. Nothing seemed to connect or have reason to it. One of the main characters was literally introduced by saying they had a feeling they should go to the same place as the protagonist. Holmes and Watson. Cats. Just yikes. I watched it 3 times in one weekend. I'm convinced I'm a Manchurian candidate myself. Years from now I'll be out at some political event and someone will pass me a gun and say, "The Jellicle moon shines tonight." Then I'll take the gun and reply, "Jellicles do because Jellicles can," and then I fire. Full disclosure, I was then and am now on edibles. They just keep repeating Jellicle like it's a real word and just expect us to accept that shit. Jack and Jill. Wasted an hour and a half of my life that I'll never get back. It takes a special kind of bad to sweep their asses. Adam Sandler won Worst Actor and Worst Actress for that. It also won Worst Film, Worst Screenplay, Worst Screen Couple, Worst Director, Worst Supporting Actor, Worst Supporting Actress, and Worst Ensemble. That movie really broke a lot of records. The Last Airbender and Suicide Squad. I went back and watched both because I thought maybe I was being too harsh on them. Nope, they still suck. I love how you hated them so much you had to double check. You know how sometimes you watch something and you are in a bad mood. I thought maybe this is what happened. Not the case. 50 Shades of Grey. I'm waiting for the movie to get interesting. Turns out it's just porn. Bad porn at that lol. They're basically like Peter Griffin writing a porn. Also, love Gilbert Gottfried reading lines from the book. Dancing movie for me was a huge disappointment, though the idea of the movie was nice and new. It turned to be very slow and boring. Was it just me, or did that movie feel like 2 totally separate movies in one, and they have no connection between them? You try to follow the plot, then forget that they are downsized until they walk by a giant water bottle or something. Dolittle with Robert Downey Jr. Jesus. What a meandering, nonsensical pile of shit. Somewhere between the really weird tiger with mommy issues and a little pulling bagpipes out of a dragon's ass. My brain just shut off to prevent further damage. This is the second mention of a bagpipe coming out of a dragon's ass, and I have to say, if this is a PR campaign, it's working. The Wicker Man with Nick Cage. Oh god. The bees. The bees. I was happy I snuck into the theater for that one. I was dying at the end when he just started punching people in the face. Just one after the other. I'd heard that sequence was pretty batshit crazy, but actually watching it was hilarious. I remember dying laughing in a movie theater full of silent people when he sidekicked the first chick like ducking Bruce Lee. The Last Airbender, the movie. It's been 10 years and I still become enraged when I think about it. Firebenders suddenly can't produce flames. All the names are wrong. The acting is terrible. i.e. Zuko's mouth not moving the first time he speaks. Closed bracket comma. And the bending feels incredibly watered down to the point where it would be more effective just to hit people normally. Need I continue? Fantastic Four. Take your pick on which one. They're all pretty abysmal. The 2005 one in particular sticks out to me. It's about an hour and a half of them being depressed about getting superpowers, followed by 5 minutes of bland action. They're also bad, but at least the 2005 one had some fun moments. The most recent one didn't even have that. The Jessica Alba underwear scene was the only reason that movie was made. Death Note Netflix adaptation. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.